My girlfriend said, "You're my backup plan if my ex doesn't work out." At brunch with her friends, thought I couldn't hear her. I walked over to the table. I'm nobody's backup. Then I left. When she called that day, and I was already on a date with someone who'd choose me first. My name is Evan Miller, 32, software engineer, reasonably calm, rational, the type of man who keeps his socks organized and his bills paid early. And until that morning, I thought I was in a stable, healthy relationship with Madison Clark, 29, a marketing coordinator with a bright smile and a habit of spinning half-truths into jokes whenever she didn't want to answer something directly. We'd been together a year and a half. She'd lived with me in my condo in downtown Phoenix for the last 6 months, nothing dramatic, nothing messy. She pitched in for utilities, split groceries, occasionally got sentimental about the bookshelf we bought together at Target. A normal arrangement. Or so I believed. That Sunday, I was supposed to play basketball with my friend Caleb, but he bailed last minute. I remember sitting in my car for a moment, deciding what to do with the unexpected free time. I thought it'd be a sweet gesture to surprise Madison at brunch with her friends, a simple, "Hey, I missed you, want coffee after?" kind of thing. Nothing heavy. The brunch spot was a trendy place with endless mimosa specials and shaded outdoor seating where people liked to hover for hours. When I parked across the street, I spotted Maddie immediately, blonde ponytail, sunglasses perched on her head, mimosa glass tilted in her hand as she laughed with her friends, Haley, Tara, and Brianna, all loud in their own ways. I stepped off the curb, planning to walk up from behind with a grin. Then the universe decided to slide a knife between my ribs. Sound carries strangely well between buildings downtown. One of the girls must have asked her something, probably Haley, because she was always the nosiest, and Maddie let out this practiced little laugh that wasn't her real laugh. It was the one she used when she wanted to seem clever or above something. I knew that laugh. And then she said it, clear as if she were whispering directly into my ear. Honestly? Evan's perfect on paper. Job, condo, treats me well, but he's basically my backup plan if things don't work out with my ex. Ryan's moving back in a few months. We've been talking again. So why give up a comfortable situation while I wait? A tiny clink of glasses followed. Soft giggles. Someone said, "Smart girl. Keep your options open." Their voices blurred after that, because the sentence kept replaying like a bad recording, backup plan, comfortable situation, waiting. I froze mid-step on the crosswalk. For a second, reality bent strangely, like I'd stepped outside myself. The traffic noise faded, and the city felt unnaturally quiet. The kind of quiet where clarity becomes sharp enough to hurt. In that moment, the last year and a half rewound and reorganized themselves in my head, the times she called me too reliable, the nights she stayed up late texting old friends, the way she hesitated whenever people asked about our future. I had dismissed all of it as normal uncertainty. I had never imagined I was just a placeholder in my own home. I walked straight toward their table. Madison saw me first, the color drained from her face so quickly it was almost comical. Her hand froze around her glass. Haley's jaw literally dropped. Tara sat back as if bracing for impact. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I didn't need to. "Hey," I said calmly. "Came to surprise you." No one breathed. I looked each of them in the eye before turning back to Maddie. "I'm nobody's backup plan. We're done." Her voice cracked instantly. "Wait, what? Evan, baby, what are you doing? You're misunderstanding, you know exactly what I heard. I didn't mean it like that, you meant it enough to say it." My hands were steady, but my chest felt like someone squeezed it from the inside. "Good luck with Ryan. You won't be waiting for him in my condo." I walked away without waiting for her reply. I didn't trust myself to stand there another second without my heartbreak curdling into something uglier. She called before I even reached the car. Then again. And again. When I ignored her, she started texting, half frantic, half defensive. I didn't answer a single thing. Inside my condo, the silence felt heavy but clear. I brewed coffee just to have something warm to hold, then sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. My brain went into a precise, methodical mode, almost mechanical. If I was a backup plan, then I was removing myself from her equation entirely. I logged her out of every account tied to me: Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, HBO Max, the Wi-Fi, all of it. I changed passwords. Documented everything I'd heard: date, time, names present, exact phrasing. Not for legal purposes, just because it felt grounding to lay out the truth in black and white. I pulled out my condo lease. My name only. Bought it myself 3 years ago. She was, legally and practically, a guest. I sent one text: "You have until Wednesday to pick up your things. After that, I'm changing the locks." Within seconds she was calling again. I didn't pick up. That evening, while my phone practically vibrated off the table from all the incoming calls, I received a message from Lena Carter, a coworker I'd always gotten along with. We'd grabbed coffee a handful of times, always with that subtle, unspoken, if only the timing were different energy. Her message read, "Random question, would you ever want to grab dinner sometime?" I stared at it for a long moment, not because I was unsure, but because it was the first message of the entire day that didn't feel like a demand or an accusation. It felt like a choice. And it felt like I was genuinely being chosen. I typed back, "How about tonight?" We met at a quiet bistro nearby. No theatrics, no masks. Just two people talking. She made me laugh in ways I hadn't realized I'd missed. She asked questions and actually listened. She looked at me like I mattered, not because I was convenient, but because she wanted to be there. When I got home late that night, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts from Maddie, ranging from, "We need to talk," to, "You're being insane," to, "You can't just throw me out." But I'd already made my choice. By the time Wednesday came, my life had already shifted onto a new axis, one built on clarity, self-respect, and the echo of a single truth: I refused to be anybody's second place, not even for someone I once loved. If part one was the moment everything cracked open, then Wednesday, the deadline I'd given Madison, was the day the pieces finally fell apart for good. I took a half day off work, not because I wanted to see her, but because part of closing a chapter means being there to lock the door behind it. Around mid-afternoon, the knocking began, rapid, frantic, the kind that announces chaos long before anyone speaks. "Evan, please," Maddie's voice trembled through the wood. "We need to talk." I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. And there she was, mascara smudged, hair frizzy from pacing, her mother standing rigid behind her like a personal guard dog. I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me. Not sadness. Just fatigue. Like I'd been running a race I didn't know I'd been entered into. "There's nothing to talk about," I said quietly. "Your things are in the guest room. All boxed. You can take them and go." Her mother, Sharon, jumped forward instantly, voice sharp and self-righteous. "You can't just throw my daughter out like she's garbage. She lives here." "She's been staying here as a guest," I responded, keeping my tone calm. "And that arrangement is over." Maddie's eyes filled with tears. The dramatic kind, the kind she used whenever she wanted sympathy more than truth. "Evan, I didn't mean any of what I said. Girls talk. It didn't mean anything." "You called me your backup plan," I said, letting the words sit between us. "You said you were waiting for someone better to come back. Don't rewrite it now." I was drunk. You know how I get after mimosas. I say stupid things. "So the real version of you comes out when you drink?" I didn't raise my voice, but the silence that fell afterward stung harsher than any yelling could. That doesn't help your case. Sharon puffed up like she was preparing for a courtroom monologue. She gave up her apartment for you. And you don't even care, her lease was ending regardless, I said, unlocking the chain and opening the door wider. This was convenient for her. She pays a fraction of the bills. She's not entitled to stay. 5 boxes, 2 suitcases, a row of clothes on hangers. All neatly arranged exactly where they could pick them up without stepping further into my home. I'd even taped labels. I didn't owe her that level of organization, but it helped keep things clean, emotionally, physically, mentally. Maddie tried to peek around me, eyes scanning the living room like she expected to see some sentimental declaration waiting for her. Instead, all she saw was an empty space she no longer belonged to. What about the bookshelf? She asked suddenly. And the coffee table. We bought those together. I bought them, I corrected. On my card. I have receipts for everything. You can take the throw pillows. They're the only things you paid for. Her mother's face grew a deeper, angrier red. This is abuse, she hissed. You're punishing her and keeping her belongings. Call the cops, I said plainly. They'll ask for receipts. I have all of mine. The threat hung in the air. Sharon faltered. They loaded the boxes slowly, Maddie crying the entire time, her mother muttering curses under her breath. When they were nearly finished, Maddie made one last attempt. Can we at least talk? She whispered. Maybe coffee this week. Please. No, I answered simply. Evan. I love you. A strange, heavy sadness filled me, not for her, but for the version of me that once believed those words meant something. You love convenience, I said. You love having someone to fall back on while you wait for a fantasy. That isn't love. She broke down harder, and for a split second I felt a tug of old instinct, the part of me conditioned to comfort her, to carry her emotional load. But I let the moment pass. She had weaponized my empathy too many times. They eventually left, and Sharon's final shot echoed down the hallway, you'll regret this. You're losing the best thing that ever happened to you. The door clicked shut behind them. And in that quiet moment, I knew with absolute certainty that she was wrong. Within the hour, the locksmith I'd scheduled ahead of time arrived. The metallic sound of old locks being removed was strangely therapeutic. When the new ones clicked into place, I felt something inside me click into place too. That night, as if the universe refused to let me have a single moment of peace, the texts from Maddie's friends began. Screenshots from Instagram and Facebook and whatever other platform she had used to spin her story. Posts about abusive men and financial manipulation and men who kick women out with nowhere to go. Dozens of comments from people who knew nothing about me, parroting whatever narrative she had painted. But the people who actually mattered knew the truth. Still, seeing her twist everything stung, not because I believed any of it, but because it made clear how far she'd go to protect the image she'd created for herself. My week, by contrast, unfolded with an unexpected softness. Lena and I went out again, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Each night felt easier than the last. She had this way of making space for my thoughts without forcing me to rush anything. She didn't pry, didn't demand details. When I eventually told her the short version of everything, she shook her head slowly and said, "Wow. You really dodged a bullet. Who does that to someone they supposedly care about?" Her simple disbelief, her instinctive empathy, felt like the first breath after being underwater too long. Maddie, meanwhile, responded exactly as I'd expected. The moment she saw me posting photos with someone new, her messages turned venomous. Accusations of never loving her. Accusations of moving on too fast. Accusations of being heartless. I replied only once, what we had wasn't real on your end. And yes, she is worth it. She chose me first. And then I blocked her. I thought that would be the end of it. But Maddie didn't understand endings. Not then, not ever. A few days later, I came home to a note taped to my front door in handwriting I recognized but didn't want to see ever again. We need to discuss custody. It's unfair to cut me off from her. She meant my dog, Harper, a 4-year-old rescue with mismatched ears and a habit of falling asleep with her head on my knee every night. My dog, legally and emotionally and in every conceivable sense. Suddenly the breakup had mutated into something darker, more delusional. Maddie texted that night, "We should work out a sharing arrangement. I'll take her on weekends." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "You're not taking her anywhere," I replied. "You played with her sometimes." "I raised her. Paid every bill. She's mine. That's final." Her response, "I'm coming Saturday to get her." I told her plainly that showing up would mean police involvement. She didn't back down. Saturday arrived. Harper curled on the couch beside me, sensing something was off. The doorbell camera showed Maddie and her mother standing outside for nearly 20 minutes, knocking, calling my name, Sharon peering into windows like a burglar who'd gone to church once and felt it gave her moral permission to trespass. When I finally called the police, I wasn't angry. I was tired. Drained. Ready for the madness to end. They left before the officer arrived, but I showed him the threatening texts, told him about the attempted dog theft. He suggested a restraining order. I jotted down the case number and stored it with everything else. I thought that was the final drop. But Maddie still had one grenade left, and she aimed it directly at my life, my career, my stability, the one thing she'd never had access to until now. My boss called me into his office on Thursday. He looked uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure if he should be frustrated or amused. "Evan. I got a strange email," he said, turning his monitor so I could see. "An anonymous Gmail account. Claims I was harassing my ex. That I was unstable. Dangerous. A threat to the women in the workplace." My stomach dropped. Heat brushed the back of my neck. My boss sighed. "It's vague. A burner account. But I have to at least ask." I showed him everything, texts, doorbell footage, the police report. He rubbed his temples and told me to hang on to every scrap of it. "If this escalates, involve a lawyer," he said. "People don't usually stop after one of these." And that was when something hardened inside me. Not pettiness. Not revenge. Just the recognition that if Maddie wanted a war, she'd underestimated how prepared I was to defend my life. That afternoon, I drove to her office building. Walked straight to reception. Asked to speak to HR about an employee harassing me outside of work. When the HR manager came down, I laid it all out, calmly, thoroughly, with documentation in hand. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough on its own. "We'll investigate," she said, face serious. "This is concerning." When I left her building, I felt vindicated, not triumphant, just right. Like I had finally put up a boundary where one should have existed long ago. That weekend, Maddie's friends found us at a wine bar, me and Lena, sharing a bottle, listening to soft music. The ringleader, Haley, marched over and unleashed accusations about abuse and abandonment and how I'd ruined Maddie's life. Lena's calm response cut cleaner than any defense I could have given. Abuse? He heard her call him a backup plan and ended it. That's self-respect. Not abuse. The confrontation didn't last long. But the fallout did, because by Monday morning I found myself sitting in a lawyer's office, recounting every detail again. He reviewed everything, then nodded. "You've documented well," he said. "I recommend a cease and desist immediately." $300 and one certified letter later, Maddie was officially warned. She signed for it that Thursday. The silence that followed was the first truly peaceful sound I'd heard in weeks. And somewhere in the midst of all the chaos, Lena grew from a supportive presence into something steadier, deeper, more intentional. She wasn't filling a void, she was building something alongside me. Something real. If part 1 was heartbreak, part 2 was the storm. What came next would be the aftermath, the consequences Maddie never expected, and the happiness I never realized I could have. If the weeks after the cease and desist were the calm after the storm, then the months that followed were the quiet reshaping of my life, like the moment after an earthquake when the dust settles and you finally see what survived the impact. 3 months had passed since the brunch that flipped everything upside down. 3 months since I stood on a downtown sidewalk and watched the life I thought I wanted crumble with one overheard sentence. 3 months since I told Madison she would never get the chance to treat me like a placeholder again. I didn't expect there to be more fallout. I thought the cease and desist would be the last thread between us, cut cleanly. But actions ripple. Choices echo. And some people don't know how to stop until they're forced to. The peace cracked one morning when my boss called me into his office again. He wasn't angry this time, just concerned, brows drawn tight. She sent more emails, he said. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. What did they say? Same accusations. Same burner account style. But she got sloppy. He turned his screen toward me. One of the emails was sent from a public coffee shop. And she posted a photo on Instagram from that same shop at the same time. I blinked. For a moment, the absurdity almost felt funny. She'd been unraveling so fast she couldn't even keep her stories straight. My boss continued, our IT director traced the metadata. It lines up. And since she sent these to 3 executives, we can't ignore it anymore. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The look on his face told me everything. My company was done being patient. We're involving our legal team, he said. Not because of you. Because this is harassment affecting our workplace. I nodded slowly. I understand. I didn't ask for this, but I'm not going to stop you either. He gave a sympathetic exhale. Good. We'll keep you updated. That afternoon, as I walked back to my desk, I felt something strange, a mix of closure and melancholy. Not because I pitied Maddie, but because this was the final proof that walking away from her wasn't a mistake. It was a necessity. I found out about the outcome of her company's investigation through a mutual acquaintance who still worked in the same business park. They put her on a PIP, he told me. Pretty much code for, start packing your desk. Apparently using company resources to harass someone is a violation of their ethics policy. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled quietly. She had chosen this path. Not me. A few nights later, she attempted one last desperate swing. She called me from a blocked number. I didn't even want to answer, but part of me needed to hear the final unraveling to close the door completely. You're really letting them sue me, she sobbed the moment I picked up. Over a few stupid emails? You tried to destroy my career, I said evenly. That wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. Repeated. Targeted. And now there are consequences. I was hurt, Evan, she insisted, voice trembling with this strange mix of guilt and rage. I wasn't thinking. Sending one email is impulse, I said. Sending multiple to different executives? That's not hurt. That's revenge. A beat of silence. Then a small, defeated whisper, I can't afford a lawyer. This will ruin me. I closed my eyes. You should have thought of that before trying to ruin me. And I hung up. Blocked the number. Again. I thought that would be the last time I ever heard her voice. And in a way, it was, the last time she had direct access to me. But the ripples of her choices weren't done. Her friend group, the same women who clinked glasses and told her to keep her options open the day she admitted she was using me, collapsed around her. The ringleader, Haley, actually reached out to apologize. "I didn't know the full story," she said quietly over the phone. "She lied to all of us. Said you were controlling. Said she needed space and you threw her out for wanting independence. I didn't know about the emails, or the dog, or any of it." Her apology wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was almost weary, like someone who finally learned the truth after defending the wrong person too long. "I didn't ask for reconciliation. Didn't want it." But hearing the acknowledgement felt strangely grounding. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. That's all. Most of Maddie's friends distanced themselves the moment they realized the extent of her lies. Supporting a friend through heartbreak was one thing. Committing defamation was another. They drew the line. She crossed it repeatedly. In the end, she had nearly no one left except her mother, who fueled her delusions instead of helping her grow from them. But the biggest blow didn't come from me, or from work, or from her friends. It came from the one person she had bet everything on, her ex, Ryan. He moved back to Arizona exactly when she'd expected. She probably imagined some cinematic reunion, the triumphant moment when the man she'd waited for finally came home. She probably rehearsed what she'd say. How she'd cry. How he'd admit he still loved her. 3 days after he arrived, he broke up with her. Turns out he hadn't moved for her at all. He relocated for a job. And while they had exchanged a few casual texts, he had never promised anything. Never suggested getting back together. Never dangled future plans. He was already seeing someone back in Seattle, someone he was serious about. The fantasy she'd built her entire safety net strategy around was just that, a fantasy. She posted a vague breakup message on social media. Normally, she'd get a flood of sympathy. But this time, the comments were thin. Distant. Even skeptical. People see patterns eventually. Meanwhile, my life evolved into something real. Something surprisingly steady. Lena and I had continued growing closer. Her presence became a kind of emotional anchor, warm, consistent, grounded. She didn't rush anything, but she didn't hesitate either. She communicated clearly. She cared openly. She treated me like a partner, not a placeholder. One evening, as we stood in my kitchen cooking dinner together, her chopping vegetables while I stirred a pan, she paused and said, "You know, thanks for being brave enough to walk away. It made this possible." I don't know why, but that hit deeper than anything else had in months. Maybe because no one had ever framed my choice as courage before. People often think courage is loud. But sometimes it's just quiet self-respect. A week later, Lena moved in. Some might say it was fast. Maybe it was. But the difference between fast and wrong is intention, communication, and choice. She didn't move in because she needed a place. She moved in because we wanted a life. She looked at the spare room, the same room where I'd stacked Maddie's boxes months before, and said, "This would make the perfect office." Her things fit naturally into the apartment in a way Maddie's never had. Not because of space, but because of energy. Contribution. Reciprocity. She introduced me to her family not long after. Her dad shook my hand firmly and said, "Thank you for treating my daughter like she matters." It was such a simple sentence. But hearing it, especially after spending a year and a half with someone who saw me as a stepping stone, felt like stepping into sunlight after months underground. Even Harper adored her, following her around the condo, curling up in her lap, greeting her at the door with that full-body wiggle dogs have only for the people they trust completely. One night, Lena sat beside me on the couch, Harper snoring at our feet, and she rested her head on my shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "I was actually at that brunch. Different table. I heard everything. I saw you walk up. I saw you walk away. I blinked, surprised. You heard all of it? Every word, she said. And I remember thinking, any man who refuses to be someone's second choice is a man worth choosing. Her honesty felt like a final puzzle piece falling into place. Everything that had happened, every painful moment, every betrayal, every harsh confrontation, had quietly steered me towards someone who valued me without conditions. The irony wasn't lost on me. Maddie wanted a backup plan. Instead, she pushed me straight toward a woman who doesn't believe in backup plans at all. I sometimes reread the notes I documented the day of brunch, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder of how far I've come. How close I came to settling for less. How easy it is to mistake convenience for love. Maddie posts now about healing from toxic relationships and finding self-love. I don't engage. I don't correct her narrative. I don't waste energy on her story anymore. Because the truth is simple, some endings look like punishment. But they're really invitations to something healthier, stronger, more honest. I was nobody's backup. Now I'm someone's first choice. And that is the real upgrade.